Hello, good afternoon. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to Real with Tennille. I have a very special guest today, Author Mica Callaway. She is the author of the book OMG, What a Mistake, Starting Over After a Bad Relationship. This book is about a Christian woman who experienced mistakes due to leaning towards her own understanding. She soon made the biggest mistake of her life, which allowed the light bulb to come on. She married a man against God's will. They were unequally yoked with different family values, morals, and beliefs. She cried out to God for her freedom from verbal abuse, confusion, control, and unnecessary drama. The biggest mistake of her life brought her to a more intimate relationship with Christ, and the focus of this book is not the people involved, but how God brought her out to help single women. So would you consider this book to actually be like an emotional release, a source of healing for you, Mrs. Callaway?
That is exactly what it is. Yes, it's a source of healing.
All right, and can you tell us a little bit about what birthed this book? What were some of the life-changing events that led to OMG, What a Mistake?
Basically, of course, like it says in there, starting over after a bad relationship. After a divorce of losing a lot of financial things, monetary things, and really going through the source of having bad credit and debt and just life events, I actually decided to see a life coach. And I wasn't happy with myself. I wasn't feeling confident. I wasn't actually looking towards being really successful at all. I was really at the verge of wanting to give up. And when I saw my life coach, he said, Mica, you know what? That's most people's story. He was like, some people, they do have bad credit, they do have debt, and they have to start over. He said, so you're transitioning into your second life. I will never forget that day that I met with him in Atlanta at Cafe 19 at Atlantic Station, and he said, Mica, you're transitioning into your second life, and I embraced that. I decided to have a transition to my second life party, and then at that particular time, I just started to write down things that I wanted to do. And I said, you know what, I want to do things in my life the second time around, and I want to do them better. So I decided to journal and write things down, my thoughts, and pretty soon I realized that I had a book that actually I could share my life events and my stories with people so that they could actually, of course, realize that you can start over after a mistake. And that's how the title was actually birthed, OMG, What a Mistake, is because when I read the book and actually when I was journaling, all I would say was, oh my God, what a big mistake. This is a mistake. And I just kept saying that. And actually, one day it just popped into my spirit and I said, oh my God, what a mistake. That's the title of my book, and I'm starting over after a bad relationship.
Now, do you feel that sometimes women get in bad relationships out of being insecure, having low self-esteem, maybe sometimes possibly socio-economic background situations? What do you find that causes women to get into a bad relationship?
I believe a lot of that that you just said, low self-esteem, being a product of our environments, and actually a lot of it has to do with your surroundings as well. And the self-esteem part actually happens to most of us. It doesn't matter your education. It doesn't matter, of course, how you look. It doesn't matter really your financial status. Everybody deals with the source of self-esteem issues at some point in time. And in relationships, a man can make you feel like the highest thing on earth and then make you feel like the lowest woman on earth also at the same time. And so you have to be really confident in who you are and whose you are. And so that's how I actually shared in the book how you had to get to forgiveness. You have to deal with falling in love with your first love so you can know who you are, so that you can be really, really confident in where you are. So also you won't mess up with the next mate because you don't want to take baggage into your future relationships.
Excellent. Excuse me. I want to talk about something because this happened to me when I got 30 and I'm like, oh my God, I need a husband. I need kids. I need this. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Do you feel that some of those things caused you to jump into a marriage with someone that you were unequally yoked with?
Definitely. As I shared in my book, my second chapter is called 30 and Ticking. When I turned 30 years old, I felt like, of course, I hadn't accomplished everything that I felt like I had to accomplish at a certain time. I was turning 30 and I wanted to be married. I wanted to have kids, the white picket fence, and of course the dream life. And so I actually didn't heal from a previous relationship properly. And my relationship that I was in currently at that particular time, he was pretty much, as you want to say, you know how you go from relationship to relationship to relationship. He was just like the next guy. And I hadn't healed. So what I did was I felt like, you know what, I'm just going to get married. Like, I wasn't in love. He was actually a person that loved me more than I loved him. And I felt like, you know what, I don't want to get hurt. So I want to be with somebody that's going to love me more than I love them. So it was actually like I wasn't dealing with healing. I was just pretty much just going to another situation. And now that I'm actually divorced, I realize that love is very important, and that has to be in the situation. So 30 and ticking was because I felt like I had to be married at a certain time, and I felt like I had to take control of that, and I moved out of God's will.
Excellent. Talking about being in the will and being unequally yoked, because I think that is very important. A lot of people don't know what that means. What does not being equally yoked mean?
Basically, having the same belief systems and actually the same values and the same morals. Actually, my ex-husband, when we were dating, I knew that we didn't have the same morals and values, but it didn't change the fact that he wasn't a good person. He was a good person, and of course, we all have good people in our surroundings. However, when true life events happen, you really want to make sure that that person goes to the same source that you go to. So being unequally yoked is basically making sure that you pray the same way, you're praying to the same God, you actually believe in the same Jesus. It has a lot to do with spirituality and nothing about religion, but just having the same spiritual beliefs and the same value system. They actually say, of course, sometimes in the Bible that if you're unequally yoked, two cannot walk unless they agree. So when life events happen and tragedies happened after I was married, I realized, wow, this is really important because now we're having life events occur and we don't even agree. We're in a house, we're married, we're one, but yet we're divided because we were unequally yoked.
Excellent. This is very good. I've actually jotted down a few questions that I wanted to ask you. Can you share some of the lowest points in your marriage? What was like rock bottom for you when you were like, Lord, I got to go?
The lowest point of my marriage was when I lost my grandfather. I was raised by my grandparents in Kansas City, Missouri, and my grandfather actually was the man that actually made a difference in my life. My parents, of course, were always in my life, and my father pretty much passed away when I was a little girl. And so my grandfather was that role model. He was that example. Not only that, he was my best friend. We could talk about anything. We could talk about relationships and sex and money, and he actually taught me a lot. I ended up losing my grandfather in about 2008, and without life, events, you just decide to keep going through the motions. So I was going through the motions, and I was living in Atlanta, so I wasn't close to him, but of course when I came to visit, I looked forward to spending time with him. When he died and I came back to Kansas City, I was so busy with just going through life events and life motions, preparing for the funeral and things of that nature. I hadn't mourned, I hadn't cried, and I really, was not really prepared to deal with the fact that I wasn't going to ever see him again. When I got back to Atlanta after the divorce, one day it just hit me. I lost my grandfather, and I was sitting in my closet, and I was just crying, and I just didn't understand why I was just feeling the way I was feeling. It was because I was really mourning, and I cried and cried, and I realized that day that I was missing my grandfather, and my husband and I were having an altercation because I had lost my job, and I was trying to find another job, and I was looking for another job, and I was trying to find ways to explain to my husband that I was looking for a job, and he came to me that day and he said, all the death in the world can't justify the way you act. And when he said that to me, since that was my grandfather and I felt like I had just lost the best thing that ever happened to me, it really hurt me. And that was the lowest point that I was at, when I realized that he wasn't there to give me a hug. He wasn't there to show me love. He wasn't concerned. He didn't really care about me losing my grandfather. And when you lose a loved one, when you go through mourning, when you go through a source of depression, when you go through things like that, you want your spouse or your husband to be there for you. You want them to understand. You want to be able to talk to them. You want to communicate, and you want to feel love in your own home. And that was the lowest point, when I was hurting, and my husband wasn't there to console me or understand.
There is something else that I want to talk about in the book that I thought for me was a low point. Just as a woman, I felt that this was something that no man should ever do. Tell us about the clothes being thrown over the balcony situation.
It's amazing how you can laugh at stuff now. It's amazing how you can laugh at stuff now. Basically, it was just drama, everyday drama in the household. And I was in the process of wanting to leave my marriage. And that particular day, of course, my ex-husband, he was starting to start a fight, and I didn't want to fight. I wanted to leave, and I have a teenage daughter, and since, of course, at that time, I felt like I didn't want her to experience what was going on, I decided for me and her to get in the car and leave. So we get in the car and we leave, and I call my mom, and I'm telling her, okay, he's about to start arguing. I don't really want it no more. I don't really argue. I don't really want to argue in front of Mica, who's my daughter. And so my mom was like, well, just call the police and go home and get some clothes and go someplace for a couple of days. Or go someplace and figure out what you're going to do, because you can't keep driving around. We were just like riding around. So I called the police to meet me at the house, and I get to the house and I walk through the front door, me and my daughter, and she's about 11 at the time. And we open up the front door because I called him back and I said, I'm on my way. I'm coming to get some clothes. I'm going to be leaving. So he knew I was coming. So when I walked through the front door, I look up in the foyer. I look up at the balcony, and he's standing up there, and he says, you want to leave? I'm going to help you leave. And he had a clothes basket, and he was walking from my room to the foyer, dumping my clothes over the balcony. And he went in my daughter's room and dumped her clothes over the balcony. And so he's walking back and forth just with a clothes basket, dumping me and my daughter's clothes over the balcony. And I look at my daughter, and she starts crying. She's just upset. So she runs out the house, and pretty soon the police come. I was actually pregnant at the time, so I'm sitting there in the foyer with a bunch of clothes and shoes, pregnant, trying to get them together. And I kept asking for the suitcases, and I didn't know where the suitcases were. And I asked him for the suitcases, and actually the suitcases were in his car, and he wouldn't get me the suitcases, so I had to go get trash bags and stuff all of my clothes and my daughter's clothes and our shoes into this bag and put them in the car. And so that's what happened with the clothes over the foyer.
Now, this was just one of many incidents. Would you say the majority of the relationship was verbal abuse?
Yes.
But there was one incident of physical abuse. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Basically, the verbal abuse was because he was raised cursing, and they cursed in their home, they cursed at each other. That was not how I was raised.
Right, we weren't raised like that.
We weren't raised like that. Yeah, like morals and values, like you just didn't cuss at your sisters and your brothers, especially in the home. And nor did I believe that my husband would curse at me. So he called me out my name one day, and when he called me out my name, I was shocked. I was like, I'm your wife. I'm your wife. Are you calling me out my name? Like, who does that? I'm your wife. And it couldn't register in his head that he was wrong. So at that particular time, I was just so upset, and of course out of rage, I decided to swing on him. But when I swung on him out of anger and rage, I missed. And since I missed, he decided to pull me over his leg, and he gave me a whooping like I was a child. He whooped me and gave me 5.
You had 5 lashes.
He was like, shh, shh, shh. And I'm like, he's holding me down, giving me a whooping. And so
OMG, for real.
Oh my God. I had never in my life I can't even imagine my parents giving me a whipping like that. So I hop up, and my instant reaction, and it was wrong. My instant reaction was to hop up, and I grabbed the lamp next to me, and I just swung.
Boop.
And it busted his head. I ran into the room, and so I ran into my daughter's room, and I covered her up with the covers, and I'm thinking, like, he's not going to come in here because I'm with my daughter. He's not going to come after me, He walked in there, and he smacked me across my face, and my eardrum busted. It was like, and it was just like, my ear just started ringing. It was just like ringing, and I was just like, I was about to get up, and I remember my daughter saying, Mommy, no, and he ran. And so that was pretty much, that was the worst because I'd never been whooped in my life. I can't imagine. I don't think my parents ever gave me a whooping.
That happened to me before. We're not going to talk about that, but somebody did me like that, and it was the same 5 legs. What is it? It's something about the number 5, honest to God, true. And I thought to myself, my dad ain't never whooped me. I know this guy really ain't about to sit here like... It really is funny that we can laugh about this now.
Yeah, it's definitely laughter.
But something that I really think is really crazy, ladies, we're about to really keep going and get into the meat of this, but what I think is so crazy is that we have heard all this crazy stuff, right, that was happening during the marriage. Let's find out what happens when she gets the divorce. What happens when you really try to actively leave this brother? I mean, because this seems to be when the real show starts.
Yes, it was. It was definitely interesting. Basically, during the marriage, I filed for divorce. I can say about 3 times. The first time I was pregnant, I just went to get a counseling session, basically, because I was interested in divorce. And at that particular time, the attorney said, "It's not a good idea because you're pregnant." And then after I had the baby, I went and filed for divorce. I actually filed for divorce for real, paid the money, and I was still living in the home. He got served with the papers, and when he got served with the papers...
That didn't go well?
No, because I was still living in the home. Not only that, he's in law. So since he's in law and he was actually, he wasn't working in family law at the time, but he's in law. No, he was working in family law at the time. So the papers that were drafted, of course, he was just heated. It was to the point where I couldn't live in the same home with him. So I had to call the attorney, tell him to stop everything because I couldn't live there and go through this process. So I was like, you got to stop everything. So the attorney, he stopped everything. And at that time, I was preparing for a way of escape the 3rd time. So when I was preparing for a way of escape the 3rd time, it got to the point where I would talk to him. I was like, I'm ready to get a divorce. And he wouldn't talk to me. He would ignore me. He wasn't ready to hear it. And in his world, you just stay. And you deal with everything and you put up with it. And, of course, I was praying to God about, wow, God doesn't like divorce. How's he going to feel? How am I going to feel? And basically, I realized that at that time, God was about to give me a release because God doesn't want us to be abused. And then I realized, wow, I'm not even married to my soulmate. Like, you're not even a believer, So I just started to deal with some things about my 3rd move. So I started preparing for my move. I started to watch the money that I had going into the bank account, and I started to figure out where I was going to live, where my daughter was going to go to school at, and I started preparing. So when I started preparing, I went to him, told him I was leaving. I had a mover. The movers were coming, and I told him that he can give me whatever he want me to have. I had made up my mind that I wasn't going to fight over stuff, and I wasn't going to fight over anything, that I really just want to get to a source of peace. So I will never forget the movers came, and he left, and when he came back, everything that was in the truck, he was like, she can't have this, and she can't have that, and I was telling the movers, whatever he says, just take it off the truck. Take it off the truck and let's just keep it moving. I moved that day, got to my house, thinking everything was fine, got me a little apartment, and of course I wanted a private place, so I didn't want him to know where I was moving to. The next day I got up for work, and I'm putting on my clothes, and my clothes had holes in them. So I was like, my clothes had holes in them, so they're all of my clothes, my pants were all on pants hangers. And I went in there and I looked at my clothes, and you could tell where they were all cut along one line with some scissors. So all of my clothes had holes in them, like on this line. And I was like, oh my God.
Who does it? Was he lame? He just sounds like he was really lame. We're not going to cuss and say what we really want to say. So we're just going to say he's lame.
Oh my God, my clothes have holes in them. So, and then I was like, he knows how I feel about my clothes. So, I decided to just get dressed and go to work that day. I get to work, and of course my extension was ringing. It was ringing, and I wouldn't answer it. And so at that particular time, when you would call an extension, if you would call like 4304, you could call 4303 or 4302, and you can get the person next to you. So he started calling, got a hold to one of my coworkers, and she came to my desk, and she's like, Mica, your husband's on the phone. I'm like, tell him I'm not here. Like, this is somebody I don't even know. I'm like, tell him I'm not here. So before I knew it, my manager called me into the office and told me, Mica, we can't have your husband calling the office, harassing the staff, etc. So I was embarrassed, and my manager knew something was wrong. And she says, Mica, you seem a little stressed, and I'm going to send you to the Family Support Assistance Program. So I went to the Family Support Assistance Program and got counseling. And at that particular time, I didn't think it was going to get as bad as it did. So I got home that night back to my apartment, and at 3 a.m., somebody's banging on my door. And I'm like, nobody even knows where I live. Why is somebody banging on my door? Well, earlier that day, he told me that he was going to file for divorce, and I was going to get some papers. So I was like, cool. I started feeling like, okay, we're moving towards the right path. He's going to go file for divorce. And since he's, in the law firm, legal field, just go do it yourself and take care of everything, because you can do that. So when I opened the door, it was a sheriff serving me with papers for harassment. So, oh my God. You're really serving me with papers for harassment, and I don't even like you. I don't even bother you. I just left you. So, basically, that whole situation after I was divorced, to answer your question, to sum it up, I was served with papers for harassment. My clothes were cut. A week later, my car was taken from me. Then we had a situation where I had to go to his house, of course, to take the baby some clothes. He called the police on me for blocking him in the driveway. We went to court for harassment. He had changed my passcodes on my call log, my phone call log. So he obtained my phone call log and was calling everybody in the world on my phone. People he didn't even know.
And was doing what? Spreading rumors,
He was spreading vicious rumors and lies. He was sending bulk emails to all of my contacts in my email. He was hacking into my emails. Every time I would go into my emails, it would say wrong password. But he knew all my security questions to my emails, so I started just making up new passwords. And I realized that he would go into my email. He would send emails to other people saying things. He sent an email to the world saying that I was sleeping with people that were my good male friends, and they had wives. And he sent an email to my daughter's school saying she wanted to run away from home. It was just like every week it was something. He was saying I was mentally unstable, I was crazy. He was talking to the neighbors about me, the people down the street about me. He was just degrading my character and just spreading lies and rumors. And also, he took my son from school one day. So when I get to the school, my son is withdrawn from school. I don't know where school he's at. I'm calling him. I'm looking for my son. The list could just go on and on. I'm definitely encouraging you to read the book because it could just go on and on.
I am too. I wish we had time to go on and on, but unfortunately we don't. But I want you to tell our viewers about the red shoes. I think this is so amazing and so important. So please tell us about the red shoes, which she has on today. By the way, check her out.
Basically, the red shoes came about because I was actually reading my Bible, and when I was actually reading my Bible and trying to stay encouraged, they talked about a story in the Bible where they was walking across the Red Sea, and just to stay focused, and if you actually get distracted, you'll sink. And so with a lot of distractions going on during the court process, a lot of lies and things that you couldn't even imagine were going to be told on you, I got to court one day and acted out of character. His attorney said that my kids had been in defects before, and a lot of those things were not true. Of course, my kids had never been in defects, and just coming to court with different things would cause you to get upset, so I would always react. And so they saw this person that, if you push her buttons, she's going to react in a way that you can tell she's crazy. But in actuality, you're just upset. So I had to learn how to be quiet, listen, play the court game. I had to learn how to stay focused. And I found out that, you know what, when I was reading my Bible, God shared with me about the red shoes. And he was like, you know what, God will get on your level, basically. If it's something that you like, if you like sports, if you like sports, if you like hair, if you like entertainment, God will get on your level and he'll start paraphrasing and using things actually to get on your level. And so since I liked fashion and I like clothes, God said, you know what, he would tell me what to wear to court. And he shared with me one day about the red shoes, and it was like, it popped in my head, red shoe focus, to stay focused. Red shoes actually demonstrate, yes, you're walking across the Red Sea. And so basically I shared that in the book about how I started to wear red shoes every time I went to court. So if something came my way, I could look down at my shoes and God would be like, what I told you, you need to stay focused.
That is awesome.
And so red shoe focus was how it came about with the red shoes. And I would wear the red shoes no matter what I was wearing, no matter what color I was wearing, because it was my own personal belief for me to stay focused.
That is amazing. Can you tell our viewers where they can find or buy this book, where they can follow you at, things of that nature?
Okay. You can actually purchase the book on Amazon, OMG, What a Mistake. You can also purchase it at my website, which is www.micacallaway.com. And also, you can follow me on Twitter. OMG, What a Mistake, and Mica Callaway is basically how you can follow me. And there will actually be a link on my website. So all my Twitter, my Facebooks are actually linked to my website. And that's Mica, M-I-C-A, last name Callaway, CALLAWAY.com.
I am so grateful that you came today. I'm just truly amazed. I encourage everybody, please, to get this book. It is a must read. I think it should be in every library, church, school, prison, university. All men and women should read this book. If you want to ask any questions or keep up with Real with Tennille, you can go to realwithtennille@gmail.com. That is REALWITHTENNILLE. I also want to just say in closing that remember to keep it real with yourself, because if you can't keep it real with yourself, you can't keep it real with Tennille. Thank you and have a great day.
CMG wants you to always remember, the victory we call success goes to the best prepared. When you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Thanks.